you two requested initially to come on, and then you also wanted Destiny to join us. You two describe yourselves as feminists. Is that?
Yeah.
So what does that mean to you to be a feminist?
I believe in equal rights between women and men.
Okay.
I believe that a woman should have the right to choose whether she wants to stay at home and be traditional. I think that's cool.
Sure.
If she wants to go to the workforce, I think that's cool as well. I just think that they should have those opportunities available to them.
To me, it just means gender equity, liberation, and the promotion of women's success financially, socially, economically.
You said equity there. What do you mean by equity? Because equality I have a fairly good understanding of, but equity is a bit more.
I think modern iterations of feminism have kind of moved away from trying to find equality and complete and total parity between the sexes and the genders in like a one-to-one way. I think it's less about trying to find this golden mean that's probably never going to exist, and more about like where do we see deficiencies for the genders and on the basis of sex or gender, and how can we accommodate everybody and make sure everybody's needs are being met, and that nobody's being discriminated against on that basis alone.
On the subject of gender, if I may ask, what is a woman?
Bro.
This is $1 million question.
Don't even bother asking Aaron that question. You're just going to get another question.
Maybe she wants to answer it.
I mean, okay. So I feel like every single time I try to come up an answer with this and I try to think it logically through, I run into some problems. So usually what I try to do is I do ask other people to define it first, because I'd rather work on their definition and see if everything tracks. Because so far, every definition that's been presented to me, like, there's some logical inconsistency.
Okay, but what is a woman?
To me, a woman seems to be somebody who presents as a woman, who acts as a woman societally.
You can't use the same term in the definition of the term.
That's not 100% true. If you know about functional definitions, that's like, I don't want to get into behavioral psych, that's going to be a whole other thing. But basically, we have these conceptions of what a woman is, how they present, certain feminine features, certain ways that they dress. And we tend to say, okay, if you wear skirts, dresses, have long hair, that's a woman. So whether it should be considered that or not is a completely different story that then starts running into logical inconsistencies.
Would you consider Gorlock a woman?
I don't know who Gorlock is.
The fat fuck.
I don't know who that is.
Whoa.
Right.
But I would
Is
love...
that you?
Pixie,
No,
if
probably
I
not.
look at somebody and they identify as a woman, but I don't know that, and I just totally register that person as a man in my mind, and that's how I interact with them, then is that person a woman?
Well, that's where we start running into logical inconsistencies, right? I would say basically the main thing is identifier, right? So
Why is that the main thing, though?
Because when we say chromosomes, when we say biology and try to use that definition, the reality here is that I did not check anybody's chromosomes in here before calling them a man or a woman.
Or genitals.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of
You
other
can
micro
just tell.
calculations that I
I-
think your brain is making about someone's appearance, which makes you register them as either one or the other.
Exactly.
Male or female.
We're making assumptions based on appearances, not genitalia or chromosomes. So there seems to be some sort of inconsistency if we try to define it biologically, because we don't actually act that way in reality. I didn't check your genitalia. I didn't check your chromosomes. I just assumed because of how you presented yourself that you were a woman. So I agree. Like, it's a complicated subject. It feels like there's inconsistencies whenever we try to define it. Like, hey, but wait a second. Just because I wear short hair, does that make me not a woman anymore? Of course not. So it is a complicated subject. I'm not here to pretend I have all the answers.
Actually, I don't think we find it
John,
complicated.
what do you think about that?
I think that you're intellectualizing it too much. I think if we took 100 people and just had them identify every person at this panel, are you a man or are you a woman, they would, with 100% accuracy, be able to discern the biological sex. Even without seeing the chromosomes or the genitalia, they would know.
That's definitely
I have
not
a
true.
question.
It's
And I've-
absolutely
not
true.
true.
It's
No,
totally
I-
true.
I-
It's
I-
so
you
true.
you could find like femboys and stuff on Twitter that are more feminine than the most feminine women.
You're right. And so here's sort of the problem. I don't like the way that the conservatives, and in particular some of the Daily Wire crowd, handle this. I understand why they do it. They're trying to attack the problem head on. But you're right when you say it's not sufficient to define a woman by her biology. You know, if you say like this sort of crude, you know, people make a lot of money now selling T-shirts like real women don't have dicks. And it's like, okay, yeah, well, real women also shouldn't speak that way, frankly. It's sort of like your definition earlier, for example. Like, I couldn't ask you what an ant is, and you couldn't reply like an ant is a creature that acts like an ant. Like, there has to be some way that that creature is behaving naturally. And I think that women in their natural state tend to, not always, but tend to behave a certain way and tend to look a certain way. And conservatives, I think, are afraid to acknowledge that because we have so much internalized feminism and liberalism in the sense that we don't want to pretend that that exists, like that women act a certain way and men act a certain way. And so we do want to keep it in a comfortable
closer to
area,
the microphone if you
a
can.
comfortable area of like, oh, well, my biology textbook says this, and you look like this. But in the next 10, 15 years, Chase and I were talking about this earlier, as the surgeries continue, as the hormones continue, the makeup, you won't be able to tell. And it won't be sufficient to just look at somebody and be able to say, oh, you're a man or you're a woman. And so it can't purely be cosmetic. It can't purely be biological. It's almost this like metaphysical discussion that I don't think anyone's ready to have. So in a way, the woke people are actually more correct because they're trying to have a conversation about the essence of gender. And the right is just like, oh, well, men and women, there's only two of them. And that's just a losing point of view. So I actually agree in a way with what you're saying. I just don't agree with the conclusion.
Part of the reason why I asked the question, you mentioned that you're a feminist and you believe in fighting for women's rights, so on and so forth. And there's this interesting thing that started to happen in our society where I've seen a number of articles about this in recent years. It came up on a couple podcasts ago. There are biological males that are being convicted of crimes, and before they go to their sentencing, they all of a sudden start identifying as women, and they get sent to female prisons where they will then go to the female prisons and they will rape the female inmates and impregnate them.
Chase, bro.
Sorry, I forgot, dude. They will grape them. A little too late.
Scuffed, dude.
Yeah, sorry. Anyways, like as somebody who believes in fighting for women's rights, like don't you feel like that kind of jeopardizes women's rights?
I think that when it comes to like the whole idea of like a sudden makeshift gender, saying, oh no, like suddenly I identify as a woman, so I can get into a women's prison and rape women. That is something. Oh, I'm sorry. I keep saying though. I'm sorry. like,
Keep going.
But yeah, that is something that would be worrisome. Absolutely. And that kind of goes back to this whole idea of like, okay, how long should a person be able to present, or are there other markers that we can actually, like, the psychologist can talk to you, have a real conversation, and be able to determine, like, what are your true, like, incentives or motives? I don't know how common these cases are. I do feel, and I just bring this up, not to try to derail.
Let me just say that the day we had that conversation, it happened again later that day. Like, it's probably pretty common.
I mean, the reason why I kind of want to push back on that is because 1% of the population in the United States is trans, right? So that means like the percentage of people who are trans and also going to jail are probably like less than, if I had to guess, like less than 0.2 or 0.3%, right? So it just doesn't seem like it would have to be, unless if you have stats saying the majority of trans people are going to jail.
Well,
then
you
that
might
would
actually
change.
have an overrepresentation.
Hold on 1 second. It could be happening in jail. It could be happening in women's restrooms. Like these kind of assaults happen all over the place. And it's like, for me, it's like, okay, I hear you say that you're a feminist, but it's like, I feel like a true feminist would really work to protect actual biological women from this whole situation being taken advantage of.
Can I add on to
Assault
that?
is already illegal, though.
I'd like to add on.
Yeah,
to
it's
that.
already
I
illegal,
just-
but it's being made.
doesn't mean
It's
it
being
doesn't
made.
happen.
I
It's
just-
it's
No, I'm
being
not saying it
it's
doesn't
being
happen. It
made
absolutely
easier.
does.
I just
It's being
wanted
made
to-
easier as a result of the direction that our society has gone in, and it's like I feel, you know, they women who stand against this stuff, they call them TERFs, right? Trans exclusionary radical feminists. But it's like I feel like there's nothing radical about it. I feel like a true feminist would actually work to protect her sisters when stuff like this is coming up.
Mr. Chase, may I add on to that? I just wanted to ask, how masculine in the face does someone have to be before you're uncomfortable in a bathroom with them?
What do you mean? That's a.
What was your question?
How masculine in the face does someone have to be before you yourself? I'm
Wait,
asking you.
have you ever been in the bathroom with like a butch lesbian?
I have. I'm asking you.
Okay, but butch lesbian, like by definition, present pretty masculinely, and yet
I'd
they
like-
still
we
Yeah,
know
but
they're
they're
women.
clearly
allowed.
still women.
I'd like for you to let me finish. I'm asking you personally, how masculine in the face does someone have to be before you yourself feel uncomfortable and unsafe in the bathroom with them?
I honestly wouldn't feel uncomfortable or unsafe in the bathroom unless if that person, and also this applies to cis women as well, unless if that person started trying to like interact with me some way in the bathroom, right?
If you saw Chase in the women's restroom, how would you react?
How would you
just
react if you saw
ignore it?
Buck Angel in the women's restroom? I think this is the issue, right?
Who's
is it
Buck
like
Angel?
is a trans man who's very masculine.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But they have a vagina. I'm assuming. I don't think they have
I got to
a
catch up
right?
on all this
Hulk
American
Hogan with a
insanity.
vagina in the bathroom. Would that not make you feel
There,
uncomfortable?
Andrew Tate did a very interesting video on this
Yeah.
where he asked.
He did.
But it's like if I saw Buck Angel in the men's bathroom, like I'd be like, okay, like whatever, I don't care.
Yeah, but
No,
I
but
think
I can
if
defend
Buck Angel
myself,
was in
but-
the
Women
women's
You're
are
saying
more
if you went
vulnerable
into the
than
women's
men.
restroom?
yeah. Well,
Women are more
surprisingly,
vulnerable than men, so
Yes.
it matters
I
less
mean-
who's going into the men's bathroom.
there's
No. We're saying if you take Hulk Hogan and you give him a vagina, and then he enters a woman's restroom,
Respect his
when
pronouns.
you see them, you're gonna say like, "Oh my God, like that's a male or whatever," but you don't know they have a vagina. So the question becomes like a lot more like murky, or the answer to the question becomes a lot more murky, because you're saying like, oh, how masculine do they have to look before you're uncomfortable? But at the end of the day, they have a vagina, aren't they?
Because if
Women,
you gave
according
Hulk
to
Hogan
most of you
a
guys?
neo
Well, you
vagina,
said-
he'd still be a man.
Yeah,
But
so
I feel like
No,
you
no,
said if
I'm
you
saying
gave him
if
a
you-
vagina,
no,
but
okay,
giving him a
let's-
vagina via a sex operation,
Yeah,
it's
if
not
you
an
have a
actual
woman,
vagina.
Refer to
if
her
you have
as
a
she, her,
woman who
please.
decide, if you have a woman or somebody who's biologically born female, whatever, and they start injecting
I
like
think that's the definition that we're
okay,
looking for.
okay. If you have a woman or like biologically born female, that's the definition you're working with, and they start injecting themselves with like steroids, start grinding, start working out, get
Testosterone.
surgery to get their boobs replaced, whatever. Now they're this like super muscular person that looks like a guy, and they go into the woman's restroom. Would that be okay with you guys?
No, probably not actually. I
So-
don't think the female body is like ready to process those kinds of hormones. One of you also mentioned the butch lesbian. Have you seen the rates of domestic violence among those types of couples? I wouldn't frankly want them. Maybe they should have like their own bathrooms
Okay,
or something.
I
Maybe
also-
it should be like an
okay, I think-
LGBT bathroom.
Yes.
for
I
all
feel
of
like the
them
issue-
to use.
By the
Third
way, someone in
restroom.
the
Third
chat
bathroom.
actually
Would you
claimed
say
that women
separate
are
but
not
equal?
vulnerable, which is absolutely insane.
Well, no. I think the argument is women are not necessarily vulnerable in bathrooms. There's not like this
They
epidemic.
are more vulnerable
Hold on.
than men.
Wait,
in
hold
general.
on.
So at what-
Hold on. Number one, there's
Okay.
not this epidemic of bathroom rapes. Okay, this is like a really fantastic scenario. Number one.
Grape.
Number two.
Grape.
Let's use
Grapes.
sexual
Number
assault.
two. Okay.
Essay.
And I don't know if this is like an SNL skit or something, but like if a rapist is chasing you and you're a woman, it's not like running into the bathroom is going to protect you, right? So the idea that
Nobody
like,
was proposing that it would.
but if there is somebody
But
that wants
should
to,
this be considered socially acceptable?
it's just
It already
Wait, hold on,
is.
wait.
No,
I'm
it's
just,
not.
Wait, hold on.
It's not.
No, wait. In some
It's- yeah.
countries, okay, so like in Sweden, for instance, there's just bathrooms where everybody goes in and there's
There's
like
no,
an
like,
individual stall for
gender
everybody. Yeah,
anything.
there's plenty of these places that exist. Nobody's out there graping everybody all over the bathrooms. It's not. This is like such a
Isn't
niche.
Sweden like the grape capital of the world?
Yeah,
It
Sweden,
is,
Sweden
it
and
is,
Germany
it
have
is, it is.
extremely
No, 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 no.
Steve
high
Larson
rates.
wrote Girl
They
with
have
the Dragon
extremely
Tattoo.
high rates.
That's because they have a more
that's
general
because
definition.
Hold on. That's because in like 2013 they did a massive redefinition to open up what they
20
considered grape.
2018.
2018
Compared to
on
other
terms of-
countries.
yeah, number one. But I'm just saying that like I think that there's a valid reason to talk about protecting women's spaces. I think there's a really good conversation to be had about like women's sports, but the bathroom example is one of the silliest, weirdest things that gets brought up constantly. There is not an epidemic of people getting raped in the bathroom, and if there was, a female sign with a dress is not going to stop a rape.
Why do women need to come up with a reason that they don't want men in the
Yeah, at
bathroom
what-
with them, though?
Mhm.
It's
Why
also-
do they need a
it's-
specific reason like
I-
that?
no,
Why
no.
can't it just
Okay,
be
yeah.
If you
that they're
wanna-
uncomfortable?
At what
But
point-
wait, you don't. You're the one
Sorry.
that's pretending they need the reason. Because if you say,
No, I'm not.
You are, because if you say I'm uncomfortable with somebody being in the bathroom just because like I feel like the women's bathroom should be just for people with vaginas or whatever, that's a fine argument. You can start there. But when it's like I'm worried they're gonna assault me, motherfucker, someone's gonna
That's
assault
part
you.
of it, but it's certainly not
It's
all
not
of
part
it.
of it.
You,
It's
you
not
are
part of it. I don't
correct
believe
with
that.
the assault aspect.
Well, wait, hold on, real quick, because I cut her off. What were you
Okay,
gonna say?
at what
Sorry.
point does someone else's comfort, at what point should that be prioritized over someone else's safety?
The problem is whose comfort, because we always talk about this on the woman's
Biological
side.
women's.
You say that, but so for instance, let's say that I'm a traditional father and I'm going to take my boy to the bathroom. Okay, let's say he's 6 years old, and then Blair White comes walking into the bathroom. You would defend that. You say, well, she's a biological male, but I might feel really uncomfortable if I'm a traditional male, if I'm a Christian
But
man.
as a man, you're far more able to protect yourself and your
No.
child than
Hold
a
on.
woman is.
Hold on. We're not talking about who's getting assaulted. I'm just saying in terms of comfort, because earlier you said it's just about comfort in the bathroom. So if I'm a traditional male, I'm a Christian man, and all of a sudden somebody like Blair White walks up to the stall and starts peeing in, and my 6-year-old son is there, and he's like, Dad, I didn't know women could do that. Well, what am I supposed to say? Now my comfort is being violated, right? So I feel like there has to be like a better middle ground here, other than like all trans people.
No, that's the point. You don't say my comfort is being violated, son. You say, son, that's a biological male, but he's pretending to be a woman.
Yeah, but that conversation is going to be really complicated.
Yeah, I don't think so.
It.
Okay,
it
but isn't
We
it
live in a
like-
crazy world, son. There's a lot
we've
of crazy
always
people.
lived in a crazy world, okay?
It's
where-
getting crazier.
No,
There's
America's
no
at, I think
denying.
America's at all-time high craziness.
Yeah,
right
we're
now.
at like peak
If you think
crazy.
that we're at an all-time high, it just goes to show how good the country is. That the biggest problem you have are who's going into whose bathroom. Okay, like there are countries that are at war right now. There are multiple countries experiencing genocides right now, and there are tons of horrible problems around the world.
Yeah, but
If
that's
your
like-
biggest issue is who's
It's
going
not-
into the
it's-
bathroom that has a dick or not,
it's not
I think you're doing
the-
okay.
That's not
right?
the
taking it-
biggest
that's
issue.
taking it
It's
to
just an issue
underline-
that came up.
What's
Wait.
the biggest issue?
No, let's take an
What's the
extreme
biggest issue in
example.
America? That's totally beyond the
I
scope
think
of this
homelessness
podcast.
on the
I'm
West
curious.
Coast is
I
an
mean-
extreme issue. That would be something that I would consider to be an extreme
It's-
issue.
it's a
Okay,
big
but this
issue.
is an
It's
issue
a big issue.
regardless. This is
It's a
an issue
problem.
regardless, and you're out here saying, "Oh, there's wars being fought." Well, that's not what's going on here.
Sure. Well, there are kind of
Well,
words.
yeah,
Not-
there
not
are
yet.
ones
When
being
I'm-
taught here, but
Sure,
in
I'm
this,
just
Not
saying
yet.
that if you want to have a conversation about the bathroom, okay, I think it's valid to say I feel a little bit uncomfortable if there are people that clearly look like a man entering the bathroom, and there's a lot of trans people that agree with that too. I think that's a fine conversation, but when it goes into this very weird world of like, I think they're going to do these essays and these like all this stuff going on, like I don't think sexual assaults. I don't
Sure.
think that like that's a legitimate concern.
sure,
I think
but
that's
I
something
think
people.
Yet.
bathroom aside, I think it's
Yet.
a principle of it. I think the discussion is safety and whatnot. I think the bathroom has little to do with it. I think it's just a broad
Sure, and
statement.
again, you're like
It's the
saying
principle of
you're
it.
using but then you're agreeing with me.
It's a
I don't
principle
disagree.
of
With you.
it.
Yeah, if you want to
Well, I
argue the
never said
principle,
I
you can argue the
disagree.
principle.
Well, I'm just
but don't
laying it out there.
fixate on like essays in the bathroom from trans
Well,
people.
no,
Let's-
you were the
no,
one who
I
was
think-
I think we
fixating
should-
on
I think
essays
so,
in
yeah.
the
We're
bathroom.
We're getting
Yeah.
lost in the weeds.
I want
We're
to
getting
come
lost in
back.
the
I want
weeds.
to come back to. By the way, can I have everyone just scoot their cups into the table a little bit?
You were
OCD over here.
fixating on essays in the bathroom for the past
think-
5
I think
years.
we should
we're,
redirect.
But that's-
we're
it feels
going to
like